Hello, everybody. Welcome to From the Dome. I am your host. We are your hosts, Jackson and Grant. And today we've got some hot topics around ETSU football. First, with the hiring of Will Healy from Georgia State. So we'll go ahead and we'll start off with the hiring. What are your initial thoughts?
So he was number two on my list. I think every Buccaneer fan, at least every diehard, was probably calling for Mike Houston.
Yeah.
Right, makes sense. I mean, he won two national championships with JMU. He was at the FBS level. Um, but again, I mean, Healy took a program at Austin P that was just awful. I mean, they were bad. I
Yeah.
mean, bad. I mean, they were 1-45 in a 4-year span before he got there. And a lot of fans keep pointing out, he's got I think two winning seasons, maybe, and he went 0-11 in that first year. Well, the
Mm-hmm.
program has won 1-4. I mean, I don't really expect it, but he went from 0-11 to 8-4.
Right.
And so you look at what Lamb did. He went from 3-8 2 years in a row, and he went to 7-5. And
Right.
he was a couple of plays away from winning the SoCon, going to the playoffs. So to go from 0 to 8 at a program like Austin P, I think that says a lot. And then obviously, goes to Charlotte. Charlotte 4 years in, transition to FBS. And so goes 7-6, goes to the bowl game the first time in their program history. COVID
Mm-hmm.
hits. I think that put a damper on some of his success going forward. And obviously things didn't work out after that. But I think Healy's the right choice though. I don't
Yeah,
really,
and to
you know.
kind of piggyback on him in Charlotte, going to that bowl game and everything. Like I said, led the team to winning season. First head coach to do it, right? That victory over Duke, which marked the program's first ever win against a Power Five opponent.
Yeah.
So that's also good, good background. And going back to Austin P, you mentioned the
1-45.
1-45. So if you dig deeper, you can go all the way back to 2007 was Austin Peay's last winning season. So from 2008 all the way up until he got there, they were 13-89 over 9 seasons. So he gets
Yeah,
there,
but yeah,
flips it around, and that goes with he had back to back. I believe it was the number one ranked classes in FCS back to back
yeah,
seasons.
that was my thing. Is like he had done recruiting, but like when he's at Chattanooga as receivers coach, like he was one of the recruiting coordinators. He
Right.
did top 5 class at Chattanooga in back to back years. He had number one year, and Chattanooga won at least a share of the SoCon 3 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Now it could have been good coaching, but at the same time, if he's the one that's bringing the key recruits that led him to those titles, and it's like you got to give him a chance. Now, obviously, things have changed in 2015 with the whole NIL transfer portal,
Yeah.
all that good stuff. So that'll be interesting, and especially with FCS and ETSU, right? I mean, the NIL is just not. It's not what it is at the FBS level, obviously. So
Yeah, there's just a huge gap, and going from some say you've been hearing on X, you know, the head coaching record that he has, just
uh,
the difference between FBS level and FCS level is huge.
mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, he was at UCF, right? 2023, he was at
He is offensive
UCF.
analyst,
Was
and
he off?
and
Yeah,
he worked under Gus Malzahn, who's
right.
he's one of the better offensive minds in college football.
So,
So
and you mentioned NIL stuff, right? With the transfer portal and everything, I would think, if you want to go and get guys out of the portal, you'd have to be a good recruiter, right? That's
yeah,
kind of a category that you probably need to check off. I think he's checked that off, right? I mean, I think he can recruit at a very high level. And I mean, he's proven it obviously at the FCS level with Austin P.
yeah,
So
and when you look at his records, and again, I've seen people talk about the records. This is a basketball school hire, whatever.
mhm.
But I mean, look, he took an Austin P team who had no experience winning football games. He went to a Charlotte school the program's been there for 4 years when he got there. It won in his first season. Again, I do think COVID really hurt his thing. But
Mhm.
again, there's a difference between FCS and FBS. But he also wants the FBS program that existed for 4 years.
Right.
And so I don't, I think that data's a little bit skewed, kind of based on it. But if you to re-up on him, look at him a little bit, I mean, most people around him, even at the Charlotte campus, talked about his energy, fan engagement, things like that. And he's walking in, with fan engagement, he's walking into a program where, people in Johnson City, are love ETSU. You look at the SoCon as a whole. I mean, I think Citadel had the highest attendance this past year, but
Yeah, we were second
again,
in SoCon for attendance.
yes, yes, second in attendance. And so you look at the fan base in the city. We have one of the best. And so if he can get those guys and the fan bases engaged, and again, there are certain alum, there's certain supporters that I think will donate to the collective. I'm sure that they'll go pay the guys they need to pay what they can, obviously. But yeah, I don't really see an issue. I get why people would want Houston over Healy. I get it. But at the same time, I think in this day and age of college football, I think Healy is probably. I don't see a problem with him being as the head guy.
I personally like the hire, and I like that he's in a.
He was number one for you, no?
He was number one for me. Yeah, I liked him number one, and like you said, Mike Houston. We can kind of piggyback off that too, because I think we both had a list of people who we thought that probably deserved to get the job. But yeah, I had Healy as my number one, and mainly because Mike Houston. I mean, he's a phenomenal coach, right? You look at his track record at JMU, outstanding. His awards that he's got. But I think Healy won an award. It was like the Eddie Robinson or something.
Yeah, he got the Eddie Robinson award. He was named the best FCS coach of the year.
Right. So he's got. I mean, there's a proven record there in FCS level football, right? I mean, it's just there. There's no denying it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mike Houston was another great option, and I think the fans really wanted Mike Houston.
Yeah.
I could tell that was a popular name going around on X. So I think either one would have done really good, but personally I do like the Will. I like that hire.
Yeah, I think the more you look into it, I think the more the fans look into it, I think they understand. I mean, look what Doc's doing, man. I mean, if you go back to the previous hires before he came back to ETSU, and you look at the hires he's made since then. I mean, Land came in, competed right away. Savage led us to a SoCon championship game last year. Mock Brown with women's basketball has done well. He brought in Vida with the men's soccer program, who went to the SoCon championship. And so it's like, he's got a proven track record. I mean, he's been doing this for a long time. And you heard him talk about, his VCU days. I mean, he had coach after coach over and over. And so I think when he was talking about energetic, and somebody who wants to be ETSU, I mean, Healy's been around the state of Tennessee for a long time.
Right.
And so I think him being around the program and, wanting to build the program up, and the bad part about ETSU is, what the FCS level is, if a coach gets an offer at the FBS, more than likely they're going to go. That's just kind of how it is.
Yeah.
And I think his kind of strategy is, let's get Healy, and if he can have success, for 3-4 years, he deserves an opportunity to get the next guy. You got to make it attractive.
Yeah. And like so Doc said, it was an attractive position. He said, nationwide that was a place that, high caliber coaches wanted to come to and compete.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, Doc has a great track record, so anything he says, it's, 8 or 9 times out of 10 probably going to end up pretty good. So, of course, when news first comes out, people, just go ahead and throw their thoughts all out there, and then, sometimes you got to kind of take a step back and look and see what he's done at the level where your school's at, right? So, but I like the hire, like I've said multiple times. So, I think it's a exciting future for football. I think he's gonna be able to build on what Trey Lamb did, or some calling him the Trey Kiffin. So, but yeah, I think he'll do good.
I wasn't gonna say nothing about him, but like, dude, it's just irritating, man. and I think most fans, I think would agree, or hopefully, it's not necessarily left. It's just the way he leaves. You sign a contract saying you want to build something, you get a pay raise, all this stuff, and then all of a sudden Tulsa's like, "Hey, come interview," and he's like, he's on the first flight out. So it is what it is. But I agree. I think Healy is kind of ready to go, and he's got enough experience, I think.
I think so too. I know another name of the list on the coaches that a lot of people were kind of teasing a little bit was Randy Sanders, right? I think that was a popular name amongst the fans.
I mean, right? How could you not? I mean, he took over the program, as this get built up, and he made it to success. Sucks that a bald man ran that thing into the ground, a little bit. But again, he retired, and so I think he was never actually really going to be in the picture for it.
I don't think so.
I'm sure Doc probably reached out and said, "Hey, man, like, if we're really struggling, we just can't get the guy that we really want to get. Would you make yourself available?" But in the end, I saw Bohannon's name being tossed around. Again, he took Kennesaw, he built them up to the FBS.
And
so
I couldn't. He was on my list, but he was. I mean, he was not really attainable, I don't think.
I also, if you just watch him at Kennesaw too, he loves that school so much.
Yeah.
And so for him, I think to jump into the next job quickly, I think, and down to the FCS level, I just don't know if he was really ready for it. Same with Mike Houston. I think the big thing about Mike Houston is, we're probably going to offer no more than $350,000. That's probably the max we're going. And so if Houston's getting paid, what was it, like 500,000 or something for the next 25 months? It's like he can sit out for a little bit and then hop back in when he wants to. So.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I had on my list for coaches was Will Healy, Houston, Bohannon, and Sanders was pretty much what I had. I think that's what a lot of people were talking about too. I think Tim Brewster from Charlotte was mentioned a couple times.
Yeah, I was never high on that. I'm kind of glad he was not. He ended up not really being and they might have interviewed. And again, the thing with Houston too is, Doc really could have called him and said, "What's the interest?" And he could have said, "Nah, I'm good." But we don't know that. I think fans at times, I think some of them are kind of acting like he was at Johnson City. He was in a meeting with Doc and was like, what's the deal? I don't know if it necessarily got that far. And if it did get that far, my guess would be we couldn't afford it. It was going to cost too much. Or just the research we had. I don't think he was necessarily ready for it if that was the case. But,
Yeah, I agree with that. There was, people. I don't think people, like you said, don't really know the whole story of what's really going on behind closed doors. So you can't jump to any conclusions or anything like that on who was there, who said yes, who said no. If they were deciding between, Mike Houston and Will Healy, I'm sure if it was in the budget, they probably would have went Mike Houston, I would imagine. But you don't know that, right? I mean, you just don't.
Yeah, and I saw a report where I think they said Nolan was pushing for Will Healy. I think he apparently, I think when it came down to the two, I think he was pushing for him. And it is what it is, and it might pay off. I don't see. Say it was between the two, and they had to pick. I don't see how. I don't see where if we chose Healy over Houston that it's going to be that big of maybe a coaching gap.
Yeah, I really don't think if. I don't think he's gonna do bad. And I mean, let's be honest, right? I mean, we said we weren't gonna talk about him much, but somehow he's come back into the conversation. It's Trey Lamb, right? I mean, he comes into ETSU, flips Gardner Webb around, but and we've seen people say it on X all the time. The quarterback positioning for him was just horrendous. I mean, he just couldn't. I don't know what was going on there, But right, so we like you said earlier, we could have won, multiple games that we had lost, if it probably wouldn't do for quarterback positioning and him trying to get that solved and settled in the right direction, which just didn't happen all season.
Yeah, and part of that issue too is I think when you keep flipping quarterbacks back and forth, like you just if one starts playing bad, you throw the other one in, and you just keep going back and forth. It never really solves the issue. And I think with Healy being a receivers coach as well, I'm sure whatever quarterback he goes with or brings in or whatever the case may be, I would assume that he'll get his quarterback on the same page as receivers. But again, we never know. So again, scale 1 to 10, probably 6.5, 7 on the higher for Healy.
I think I'm right around 7.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of. I think everybody should be optimistic about what could happen here. Again, I get why people may be upset with it. I understand it, but I think if you really deep dive and you kind of look at it, and just knowing how Doc does things, I think this is let's just hope that he doesn't 1-2 years and then jumps again.
Yeah.
But again, that's just how the level that we're at.
And I don't think.
But I also think though, like if ETSU wins SoCon titles and they're getting playoffs and they're getting boss, kind of like how Mercer is.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's necessarily a need for coaches to jump to the FBS level at like a Sun Belt or an AAC team who may not ever really have the chance at a playoff, other than just making more money. So.
Yeah,
we'll see.
And I think to what you had said about hopefully he doesn't just come in and do a 1-2 year and then be gone. But I hope I'm right about this, or I'll get called out on it. And that's totally fine. But he was, he did interview for the head coaching job last year for ETSU, right? He was in that cycle,
right? Yeah.
So
right.
So him coming back again to apply for that coaching job, that tells me that he really does want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, because he could have just stayed where he was at, or I mean, maybe who knows what was offered to him. I mean, so that to me speaks volume, right? If you don't get the first time, head coaching leaves, you come back a second time. To me, that just sounds like a guy that really does want to be here, and I hope I'm right on that.
Yeah. Well, and he was an analyst, applied for the job, didn't get it, and he goes and becomes running backs coach as long as the assistant, head coach. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there were FBS schools that thought about hiring him, something higher than what he was at Georgia State, but to come back and interview again. I think he talked about somebody his wife, I think, on the X page about wanting to live in Johnson City and being in that town.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's a fantastic place to live, right?
He's 39 years old. He's got kids, so I mean, realistically, this could be a place where he makes a career. So
yeah, hopefully so.
We'll see. From the poll, right? We've got 29% said the right guy, 42 said they don't know yet, 29 said not the guy. So it's split between right guy, not the guy.
Pretty much, yeah.
And then there's a lot that's just unsure of, which
is fair, right? That's
I think that kind of goes back to what we've been talking about. I think again it's like a lamb hire. I think it's a high risk, high reward. It's considering what he has done. But then again, they're looking at it overall over a couple of years. If he does fail, I think a lot of fans will then, I mean, you look at Corals. 3-8 after one season, fans are already saying, I don't know about this guy, and then he does it again. Halfway through the second season, like, all right, he's got to get out of here. So
yeah,
I don't know how much time the fans will give him. Obviously, I think teams need to be able to get their own guys in. I think you got to let a cycle come through.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, he's 3-8 or worse after 2 years, and I get it.
Yeah, I think 2 years is a solid.
Yeah, but I think if he's sitting on that 5-6, 6-5 line, because me and you were talking about last year when Trey Lane came in, we said if they can finish above basically VMI, Citadel, and Wofford, and he can get to 4. I think we said 4 or 5 FCS wins. That would be a win considering what we've gone through. obviously exceeded that. And so now I think the issue with Healy now is, okay, well, Trey just turned around a 3-18 to a 7-5 team.
Yeah.
Who again was a couple plays away from the SoCon.
Mm-hmm.
What are the fan expectations? And so
you're right. Yeah, they're
where are we gonna
high,
where are we gonna
right?
where are we gonna set it?
Off of what I've seen, I mean, and I think that's just how ETSU fans are.
And they should be,
right? Yeah,
and they should.
And I think Trey Lamb coming in and flipping it around. I think I had Lamb predicted. I think 6-6 was my prediction before the season came in, and he said 7-5.
Yeah, 7-5 or 7-4, something like that. Yeah. Whatever.
So that to me already sets, for fans, that already sets a high expectation for Will to come in and replicate, over 500 season. And I think a lot of fans are probably, if you were going to run a poll and
on the expectations, and that's what we'll do.
I guarantee you, a lot of them will probably say,
I would say a winning season.
SoCon championship is probably
that
is going to be on there.
I think most people who and we kind of follow the people that are kind of the diehards who are constantly putting stuff out and talking about it. I would say majority of them would probably say a winning season. I think 6 wins is probably what they would say.
Yeah, and that's what I would say too.
And I think we have to look at who he brings in terms of players as well. That's going to be a big deal. But 6 wins is probably what they're going to be looking for. Again, he gets to avoid North Dakota State next year, so he gets to wait until his second season to hit North Dakota State. But so if you look at the non-conference the non-conference slate, other than Tennessee, he's got a really good shot at starting off strong, going into SoCon play, and so that's part of it, because there seems to be every year, even when Randy was there's always one SoCon game where, it just we just fall apart in. This past year was Furman at home. That's the one that killed us.
Yeah.
And so I think you need those non-conference wins going to SoCon if you're going to reach that that goal. And again, SoCon beats itself up every year. And so maybe you just need a couple things go your way and, kind of go from there. But if he starts off with, 2 or 3 wins next year, fans are after one season are going to be already questioning, and rightfully so. I mean, we've, ever since Sanders got here, we've had a tradition of pretty much winning until quarrels. Look at basketball. Forwards went 5 straight seasons with, 20 plus wins. Shea had a tough time, brings in Savage, really no one really knew the expectations, but Savage goes to SoCon title games. So, this year, right, they're expecting to go back to it, and so, again, the goalposts kind of get moved. But again, as ETSU's fan, though, I think we've had some of the better athletics in all the SoCon, and so I see no problem with, being where we need to be.
Yeah, and with that hire for Healy, right, he's going to come in, we can talk about the transfer portal. ETSU's had some really good guys that's hit the portal, which was expected.
Right.
But he's also got to hire, three guys to come in, right? Trey Lamb took Josh Reardon, who was a defense coordinator here at ETSU. He took Hakeem Gray, who was the defensive line coach, and Joe Skeffel, who was the offense coordinator and offensive line coach. So he's got some positions to fill.
Yeah, it'll be interesting on who he brings in as the OCDC. I think some of the guys that Lamb brought in last year that he didn't take with Tulsa probably deserve a spot, especially on the defensive side. The defense side of the ball this year was ETSU's strong suit, and I think I think some of those guys, I think probably deserve an opportunity at least to get a look, and get interviewed, and kind of see. But again, it's a business, so if he brings in guys from the outside, again, he's been at the FBS level for the last, since 2019, so the last 5 years. So I'm sure he has some connections at that level that he could bring with him, that, have some experience with those. So we'll see. And again, I think that's the biggest thing too, is him coming from the FBS level the last 5 years. How many guys will he bring from the FBS level? Or is he going to try and, he's a great FCS recruiter, so is he going to try and portal some FCS guys with experience? So that's going to be a question, obviously. I'm sure in his, in his press conference that he'll do, I'm sure that he'll probably talk about those things. But,
Yeah, and speaking of portal, I'm just going to, of course, we've been following it on X and everything, and been reposting and quote tweeting and everything. But I just wanted to run down a quick list just in case people haven't.
Mm-hmm.
We're not gonna get into it too much, but a lot of good names in here that are in the portal. So, offensive side of the ball, you got Seth Williams, who's an O lineman. You got AJ Johnson, who's a wide receiver. Jalen King, quarterback. Miata Jones, offensive lineman. Darrell Bailey Jr., offensive lineman. John Hunt, who is a redshirt freshman quarterback. Tyson Moore, offensive lineman. Shalanke, who was offensive lineman. Jaquan Adams, offensive lineman. Reese Fountain, quarterback. And Micah Sumter, offensive lineman. That's the offensive side of the ball. Defense, you've got Red Coney, linebacker. Jalen George, defensive lineman. Nick Hunter, linebacker. Ty Anderson, linebacker. Noah Gravel, linebacker. Javon Henderson, who's the defensive back. And Isaiah McGaha, who's the defensive end. So there's just a couple of names in the portal.
A couple of big names as well.
Yeah, really big names, especially the ones that stand out to me. AJ Johnson, wide receiver, he just explosive this year. I think he was the highest most receiving yards at ETSU since 2015. I want to say,
which is crazy because when Tyler Riddell was here, I mean we passed the ball quite well.
Or he was second highest. Sorry, I think.
Okay, right.
Will Huzzle.
Was it Huzzy? Yeah, Huzzy. Yeah.
Will Huzzy was I think he had 700
he was number one.
yards. So
yeah, I was gonna say he had quite a year when he was there.
Yeah, AJ Johnson was a huge recruit out of high school. Right, he actually committed to LSU. He's from New Orleans. I think he got injured or something, and then ends up guarding Webb.
I would imagine he makes a jump to the FBS. Yeah. Now I don't know if he go to Tulsa because again he jumped in the portal before the last game of the season, and so I don't know if he had some issues with the coaching staffs, and so if that's the case, I doubt he goes there. But again, he's probably going to FBS.
Yeah, him. Darrell Bailey shoots out to me too. Redshirt senior offensive lineman. He actually came from I want to say USF, so he's got some FBS experience. So I could see him making the jump up. On the defensive side of the ball, I think is where you really hurt a lot. Ray Coney, linebacker, has been phenomenal for ETSU this past season. He's already got FBS offers. Nick Hunter has been elite on the defense side of the ball. Of course, he had FBS offers out of high school, so I can see him making that jump too. Javon Henderson, I think, is a sleeper. He didn't get as much playing time this year at ETSU, but I felt like he was going to be a really good
breakout.
Really good starter for us this upcoming season. But he's in the portal, and of course Ty Anderson, the linebacker, he was solid this year too. So a lot of players in the portal, I think, will probably get that FBS level offer.
Yeah, the linebacker and secondaries, which makes sense. They're the best positions all year. And obviously a couple of offensive linemen. Jaquan Adams, obviously redshirt sophomore. He's got a ton of FBS offers. Just going Virginia Tech, I think, earlier today. So, again, they got to fill those. But again, I'm sure he's going to come in with some of his guys that he's probably got an eye on in the portal and so on. So
yeah, so we got
go from there.
Portal stuff to fill up. We got position groups to fill up and coaching staff to fill through. But like I said, I'm excited for what Will Healy was going to do. I've got a lot of hope in him. So
yeah, I do too. I mean, I think he'll be good for us. I think it's the right fit, and I think that's kind of what Sanders looking for. I mean, we can go for the top guy all you want to, but if it ain't the right fit, I just it won't really matter. And so I think Healy fits what we want to do, what we look for, and he'll get the fans excited. So
yeah,
we'll see come August.
I think so. I think that's all we've got for you guys today, unless you've got anything else to say, Grant.
No, I mean, we'll probably be back on Sunday or Monday. Obviously, we'll watch Healy's press conference again. Men's basketball plays Saturday at 1, so we'll keep an eye out for Brooks Savage and his guys, obviously. I've had a decent start to the season so far. Gearing up before conference play starts in January. So again, yeah.
Yeah, I think that Will Healy press conference is Friday at 12.
I believe so. 12, 12:30, one of those two.
We'll keep a look at it. Like I said, make sure to follow us on X. That's at From the Dome ETSU, where we've got quick informed updates on ETSU athletics. I think that's all we got for you. Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.